Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for part 2 of the Q&A, so let's go ahead and get this started. Alright, first question. Hi Jason, if I remember correctly, about 8 to 12 months ago, it's actually longer than that, you made a couple of videos about the benefits in training with a belt, and that a belt actually does make your abs core stronger. My question is, how well does this training with a belt translate into suddenly having to live without a belt and a daily life situation in which it's necessary to lift a heavy object? Assuming I brace properly, would I just have less strength, or are there other potentially problematic factors that might make it worthwhile considering training without a belt? Or would the extra abs/core development you get from training with a belt make it all the more reason to train with a belt rather than without one? Best regards, Lewis. Very long question. It is something that people recall that for a long time I did promote beltless training, or phases of beltless training. And eventually, a couple of years ago, really I came forward and said, look, the evidence of the opposite's getting overwhelming. Plenty of some of the best experts in the field of strength, muscle growth, everything else have largely debunked this. I have to get current with the times and accept that I was wrong. Okay? I was wrong. And I've made that very, very clear, both in my own training and in the way that I've discussed the topic. It's one of those cases where I didn't just admit I'm wrong, I completely changed what I did based upon the data. I said, you know what, I was wrong, let's do better on this one moving forward. And I do. I use a belt for most stuff. Belted training makes you stronger, period. And it makes your core stronger. So people who are saying, and I used to be one of those, let's make that clear, I used to be in that camp. And I was wrong. I was wrong for years. Beltless training does not make your core stronger. You gain no strength benefits from training without a belt. Technically, you can get better activation of all the muscles of your core with a belt on. And if that's the case, then it's going to get more development. More development equals more strength. As long as you can brace correctly when you go to pick up something or get hit or whatever, without the belt, the training with the belt will carry over. So you have that to consider. Then we have the facts to consider that training with the belt makes you stronger. We get better muscle activation when we have a belt on. Okay? It's easier for us to hit upper threshold muscle fibers. It's easier to get better quality training on a rep per rep basis in terms of muscle contraction, motor unit involvement, everything else. Okay, there's a larger neuromuscular response. Just like when you squeeze the bar really, really hard, which you should also be doing. Squeezing the bar really hard and wearing a belt, it's a great combination. We get better muscle activation. Therefore, we get more strength, more size. Not a massive amount more, but it's there. Train with a belt. All right, your core and everything else will be stronger for it if you learn to use the belt correctly. All right, next question. Coath. How long would it take an early intermediate to regain strength after a period of 2 months during which he cannot or can barely train, assuming he eats at maintenance and is able to avoid most of the stress in his life during this period? Thanks. This is pretty common given the lockdowns we are still seeing all around the globe. Tons of them still. So yeah, there's a lot of people who can't train. They don't have access to stuff at home. How long does it take to regain strength, which is going to be muscle? Strength comes back within a couple weeks. The strength meaning the ability to use the muscles that you have. Now, you're talking about muscle mass, that's a different ballgame. Now, you're going to lose some pounds on the bar, but your relative strength is going to come back in a couple weeks. And it's going to depend on how much muscle you lose. So let's come back over to the real question. How long does it take to regain muscle that you lose? I'm going to say usually time off needs to be replicated. In other words, if you had 2 full months of detraining, it could take 2 full months to regain everything that you've lost. Okay? Which is kind of what you described there. Now, what do we mean though? 2 months of muscle loss? Well, you're not going to lose muscle mass at first. And that's a point we need. And I think I'll have another question coming in this set of Q&A somewhere, and I'm not sure how far, and it might be in the next week's blocks. Where someone was asking, how quickly do you lose muscle? You don't lose any muscle in the first 2 weeks, right? You don't lose any muscle in the first 2 weeks of no training. You completely walk away from the gym, right? And at the end of your last workout, you can go get DEXA scans, MRIs, or whatever of the muscles, and come back in 12 days if you've just laid in a bed for 12 days, didn't even move, there will be no loss of muscle tissue. It takes about 2 weeks to start. To tell you guys something about those who are worried about losing muscle because they reduce volume quickly. Something I brought up in a video a while back. One of my client tutorials. Really, you saw a change in 2 weeks. You reduced volume to a reasonable amount and you saw visible muscle loss in 2 weeks. No, you didn't. MRIs and DEXA scans can't even detect muscle loss in 2 weeks. So you're going to have about 6 weeks of muscle loss. I would expect on average then about 6 weeks to regain what you lost. And the first couple of weeks you'll be regaining neuromuscular efficiency, intramuscular coordination, all that stuff. So it'll take you probably, I would estimate 6 weeks. Might be 8 weeks. But I've worked with quite a few clients post lockdowns, people who didn't have access to weights and stuff, and I've found that generally I can get people to return to where they were very, very quickly. And I mean, I'm talking very fast. But you need to be doing some stuff at home anyways. Which again, I'm sure there'll be more questions in these Q&As about some of that. All right, next question. When I first started working out, I followed a certain YouTube fitness channel and copied all their workouts. But after 7 years of lifting and the amount of conflicting information out there, I really struggle to follow a program because I feel there's too much info out there and get stuck in this whole paralysis by analysis. There's a reason I don't even watch YouTube fitness anymore, other than the content that I put out when I make it. I just don't watch it. Because I'll be quite frank with you, most of the fitness YouTubers have no idea what they're doing or what they're talking about. They are where they are because of genetics and a little bit of trend. Most of them lack basic knowledge. Most of them lack basic training knowledge, basic programming knowledge, anything beyond that would help maybe the novice phase. Okay? And there's plenty of guys out there who have some decent novice info. But that's about all it's useful for. So realistically, that's part of your problem. You're being flooded in by too many sources of non-credible sources, right? People who can't lift anything, people who don't coach anyone. Don't waste your time with that. And before people jump in, well, Jason, or you don't, I coach full time. My actual full-time job right now is coaching. So let's not even go there. This YouTube is a very, very small part of what I do. I almost don't care about it. I care, but not that much. So, that being said, you're getting too much conflicting data because you're listening to too many bad sources. And the same thing, I mean, I know people who are really, really big YouTubers and a bunch of people who followed their programs, bought their programs, and didn't get anywhere. Now, there can be other factors involved. Usually it's because they don't eat. And yes, I am talking to a couple of my own clients right there. You know who you are. When you're 11% body fat and you're not gaining any weight, you don't eat. Therefore, your progress is going to be a fifth of what it should be. So, get over to the point. Quit following so many sources. Only follow the best sources and you're going to find the information doesn't vary as much as you think it does. I mean, realistically speaking, even though there's some differences, do you really think that the basic premise of if you listen to both Louis Simmons and Chris Duffin, both on very different ends of the top-level coaching spectrum, do you really think you're going to be getting bad conflicting information? No. Follow a program. Stick with a proven system. A system. If you're not going to hire a coach, follow a system. I don't care if it's conjugate. I don't care if it's 5-3-1. I don't care if it's something you get from Juggernaut. Follow a proven system. And if you're going to experiment with anything as far as paralysis by analysis, experiment with your supplemental lifts. Okay? Experiment with your supplemental lifts. Leave the basic programming to a proven system and don't try to do it yourself. Unless you really know what you're doing. Problem solved. Alright guys, well that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.